Picture this. It's the mid-1990s, and getting an email address basically meant paying your internet provider. Worse, if you ever switched providers, poof, you completely lost your address. Well, two engineers looked at that setup and thought it was completely backwards, so they built a free email service that you could pull up on literally any web browser. But here was the catch. How do you actually get people to hear about it? The standard playbook back then was billboards and radio ads, which was just way too expensive for a tiny startup giving its product away for free. Then, an investor suggested one tiny tweak. They added a short promotional line and its sign-up link to the very bottom of every single message their users sent. And the result? Almost overnight, they were pulling in thousands of new signups a day. Within about 18 months, they had millions of users and ended up selling to Microsoft for a reported $400 million. So today, we're diving into this objective investigative explainer, documenting exactly how Hotmail won its customers and looking at how a massive chunk of that success came down to just a single line of text.
Here is what we're going to cover in this explainer. We've got 5 phases. First, a web-based email revolution. Second, the documented promotional record. Third, the timeline of viral growth. Fourth, analyzing verified growth theories. And finally, the resolution and Microsoft acquisition. Let's get right into it.
Phase 1. A web-based email revolution and the push for independence from ISPs.
To really appreciate this, you have to look at the stark contrast of the era. Traditional 90s email was paid, tightly controlled, and entirely tethered to your internet service provider. Like I said earlier, if you switched your ISP, you lost your entire digital identity. But the idea that Hotmail's founders proposed was completely radical for the time. They wanted to build a free, browser-based alternative that gave users total independence.
Looking at the documented founding details, the creators, Sabir Bhatia and Jack Smith, actually used to work together at Apple. They came up with the idea in 1995 and managed to raise a reported $300,000 seed investment. And here's a really cool detail. They officially launched the platform to the public on July 4th, 1996. That was a highly intentional, very symbolic nod to giving users independence from provider-controlled email.
Moving into Phase 2, the promotional record. This is all about a small change that had massive consequences.
Initially, their launch was pretty unremarkable. They originally planned on doing the traditional billboards and radio ads, but that strategy struck their investor, Tim Draper, as way too costly. So the change that is widely credited with shifting the entire trajectory of the company came directly from him. Draper proposed adding this exact line to the bottom of every single email a user sent out. P.S. I love you, get your free email at Hotmail, with that closing phrase linking straight to their sign-up page. Now, counts do differ a bit on the exact final wording. Some reports say the P.S. I love you part was eventually dropped, but regardless, the core promotional tactic was officially set in stone.
At first, the founders were actually kind of hesitant about this. They were worried it might look a bit like spam, but the viral mechanism behind it was just ruthless and incredibly efficient. Think of it like a chain reaction. Step 1. A user just sends a normal email. Step 2. The recipient opens it and sees that short promotional line and a one-click sign-up link riding along at the bottom. Step 3. The recipient clicks it and signs up for their own account. And Step 4. That brand new user starts sending their own emails, instantly becoming free advertising themselves. Literally every single outgoing message converted standard internet traffic into a new exposure point.
Now, just to be thorough for the sake of a strict investigative record, we do need to note that regarding any subterfuge or alternate identities involved in this case, there is absolutely no verified data available. We are relying strictly on the documented facts here.
All right, on to Phase 3, timeline of growth, where we track this explosive user adoption.
The most crucial takeaway here is just the sheer steepness of this growth curve. After that footer went live, Hotmail was reportedly averaging 3,000 new users a day. Let's look at the timeline. From their launch in July of 1996, they hit roughly 1 million registered users by January 1997. And then, just weeks later, that number doubled to 2 million. By December, which is only 18 months post-launch, user counts absolutely exploded to somewhere between 8.5 and 12 million. That is massive scaling, practically without spending a dime on ads.
And tracking their verified geographic footprint maps perfectly to that rapid expansion. They started out in Mountain View, California, eventually had to move their headquarters to Sunnyvale as the team scaled up, and finally, they landed in Redmond, Washington.
Real quick, before we move on to the theories behind this, if you're enjoying this story or finding it helpful or entertaining, please subscribe and hit the like button. It really helps bring more documented deep dives like this to the channel.
Phase 4. analyzing verified growth theories. Why exactly was this so successful?
So theory 1 is what's reported as the self-propagating viral loop. The idea here is that because every outgoing message carried a one-click sign-up, each user was essentially recruiting the next one automatically. This specific tactic is widely credited as the actual birth of viral marketing. But we have to classify this strictly as a theory, simply because this loop didn't happen in a vacuum. Other factors were definitely at play.
Which brings us to reported theory 2, genuine utility. The footer wouldn't have mattered if the product was bad, right? Free, browser-based emails solved a massive, real-world problem for people, which gave them a concrete reason to actually adopt it and share it. Product demand and the distribution method reinforced each other so perfectly here, it's really hard to credit one without the other.
Reported theory 3 centers on near-zero acquisition cost. The footer basically cost nothing to implement, and it scaled entirely on its own. This is really often cited as the main reason the tactic won, but we do have to note, this theory relies on comparing the footer's success to an expensive, traditional billboard campaign that the company never actually ran.
And finally, theory 4, which is an analytical inference, market timing. The mid-1990s internet boom acted as a massive multiplier for them. That viral loop was spreading across a rapidly growing base of brand new web users, which amplified their results in a way that a flatter, slower market just never could have supported.
Phase 5, resolution and the Microsoft acquisition. How did this all end?
The culmination of this whole case study really comes down to one staggering number. At the end of December 1997, Microsoft officially announced they were acquiring Hotmail in an all-stock deal that was reportedly worth around $400 million.
When we look at the verified facts of the acquisition, the deal officially closed in December of '97. Now, reports indicate that Microsoft's initial offer was actually floating around a much lower $140 million. The founders held out, and while the exact final price was never officially confirmed by the companies, that $400 million value was ultimately paid out in roughly 2.77 million shares of Microsoft stock.
And the legacy and platform evolution that followed is equally well documented. Both founders, Badia and Smith, actually joined Microsoft as part of the buyout. From there, the service evolved pretty rapidly. It became MSN Hotmail, then it was rebranded to Windows Live Hotmail in 2007, and eventually it was fully replaced by Outlook.com in 2013. But as a real testament to its incredible staying power, those old Hotmail.com addresses still function perfectly on Microsoft's platform today.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to really consider. When you look back at this incredible, documented record of viral growth and that massive acquisition, you kind of have to ask yourself, how much of the modern internet's growth is built entirely on the blueprint of a single zero-cost sentence?
Thank you for hanging around until the end. If you want to see more documented deep dives, hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next one.